Hare Krishna, Param Vijayate, Sri Krishna Sankirtanam, total world victory of Hare Krishna. My name is Sitapati Das.
And my name is Dana Devi.
And we are joined today by our very special guest, all the way from Alachua, Florida, via the miracle of modern technology, His Grace Divyanga Prabhu. Hare Krishna Prabhu, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, Prabhu. I consider it an extreme pleasure and a real opportunity just to talk about Krishna consciousness, especially Sankirtan.
Yeah, fantastic. This right now is the 50th anniversary of Sri Sri Kishore Kishori. Devotees from all over the world, at least all over the United States, North American continent, and other places, have gone there to the temple to celebrate, to remember. No, I'm just going to stop my camera for a second because we're having some connection issues here to make sure the audio is good. But devotees have gone there from all over the world to remember, celebrate, to associate at the lotus feet of Sri Sri Kishore Kishori after having served there over the last 50 years. And you haven't been able to make it there.
Logistics.
Yeah. You and a few
Although
other
many devotees did call and say, come on, Div, you got to be here. We'll pay your airfare. And I was like, I'm sorry, I just can't do it. But this is the next best thing, I guess.
This is even better because we don't get to be there either. But now we get to participate. I'm like, praise the Lord. This is like drops of mercy from the lotus feet of Sri Sri Kishore Kishori falling all over the world.
They're very kind. Okay.
Yeah, so please share with us.
I want to start by telling how I came, how I joined, because I joined a traveling Sankirtan van. I was 17. I lived in Ann Arbor, Michigan. The University of Michigan's there. There's 50,000 students. And every week, 2 or 3 times a week, devotees would come from the Detroit temple and do Harinam on the campus in Ann Arbor. So I'd be down there with my friends, and we were just hippies partying. And we would always see the devotees doing Harinam. And they would always give you something. They would give you incense or a record or a book or prasadam. And we'd see them out there dancing in dhotis in the winter. And we were in down coats, and boots. And we were cold. And the devotees are out there smiling and singing in dhotis in freezing weather. And we always thought they must be higher than us because they're oblivious. All we did as teenagers was take acid, smoke pot, eat peyote, and go to the concerts. There was many concerts. There was always some show to go to. And every concert I went to, I saw the devotees. And I always liked them. I mean, I never thought I wanted to be one or anything. I just thought, I like them. And one day I was walking to a concert and a devotee said, can you carry this for me? And he gave me a mridanga and a box of books. So I carried the mridanga and the box of books, and then I said they had like a little place where they were doing the Harinam with the blanket down. So I set down the mridanga and I set down the books, and I started to walk away. And he said, no, wait a minute. And he said, here. And he handed me a sweet ball. And he said, eat this. So I ate the sweet ball, and I was like, thank you. And then I went to the concert. And this would happen all the time. Every time we used to go to this place called the Hill House, where we had, there was a lot of politics going on in the 60s with, everybody was against the Vietnam War, and there was these big hippie houses in Ann Arbor, and the devotees would come from Detroit to those places and distribute prasadam and books and big posters and records and incense. And so it seemed like everywhere I wanted to be, they were there. And I also saw them with the Beatles. The Beatles were singing Hare Krishna. Elementary penguins singing Hare Krishna. That was, I was like, what is that? So it's like, wow, the Beatles like Krishna, the hippies like Krishna, and I like them. So I just kind of got used to seeing devotees, now and then. One time I was at a concert and the devotees just sat me down and gave me a full plate, sabji, rice, and it was halava and a drink. And I was like, wow, I love these Hare Krishnas. Anyway, so one day I'm walking down the street with a friend of mine and we're heading to a concert. There was a big Moody Blues concert a couple of miles away. And we're walking down the street, you know, we're smoking a joint, drinking a Heineken. We were eating peyote, getting ready for the concert. And I saw a van full of devotees pull into a gas station. And I said, you know, they're probably going to that concert. I'm going to go get a ride with them. And the guy I was with went, I'm not riding with those guys. So I said, well, see you later, pal. And I walked over to the van, and you know, I just wanted a ride to the concert. I didn't think, you know, I'm going to change my life, or I'm going to shave my head, or I'm going to become a Hare Krishna. I just wanted to get a ride to the concert. So I go over to the door of the van and I go, are you going to the concert? And Mrigendra Prabhu says, get in. So I sit down in the van and he hands me a Bhagavad Gita. And it just so happened a few months earlier, a devotee did the same thing. I was riding my bike down State Street and he hands me a piece of incense. And I stop and he goes, here, give a donation. And I said, okay. So I gave him $5 and he gave me the Gita. Now, I took the Gita home and my friend looked at it. And the first thing he opened up, it was talking about controlling the senses and specifically celibacy. And he went, whoa. And he just closed the book and he put it on the shelf, you know, with respect, but, you know, we're not ready for that yet. So he hands me the Gita in the van and I go, oh, I just got this. I already have this. So Mrigendra gives me 2 Bhagavatams and a Nectar Devotion and a TLC. You know, he stacks me up. And he goes, give a donation. I've been in the van for 2 minutes, right? And I happened to have $90 in my pocket that day. So I said, what the heck? So I gave him a few 20s. And then he found another book and he gave me another book. And then he found an Ishpanishad and he gave me that. So I said, here. So I gave him the $90. Then go ahead, here's a donation. And we went to the concert and we parked in the parking lot and had a kirtan. And we maybe chanted for 25, 30 minutes, you know, and the kirtan was really nice. And they said, now here's what we do. And they changed their dhotis and they put on karmi clothes. And they said, we're going to go out here and we're going to give these incense sticks and these books to these people because we got to spread love of God and we got to help these people. And would you like to help us do it? And I was like, I felt like if I said no, then they would think I was an insincere person. At the same time, I was thinking, that concert's about to start. I really want to go to the concert, right? So I went, oh, all right. I don't know. So they gave me a bunch of incense and a book bag with books. And we're standing out there giving people incense and saying, give a donation and giving them books. And I'm seeing my friends. The guy came up, McCready, what the hell are you doing? You know, I go, hey, we're spreading love of God. Give a donation. You know, I'd only been in the van for a half an hour and I'm out there, you know, hustling people for books and incense, which I thought was great. I thought, this is awesome. You know, every time I go to a concert, I see these guys, but I go to the concert and, you know, get high and I don't know what they do. Well, here's what they do. So we did that concert. We sold books for, I don't know, an hour or more. And then I didn't want to go to the concert. I don't know why. I had no intention. And they said, well, we're going to the temple in Detroit. It was maybe a 50-mile drive. Would you like to come to the temple? And by now it's like, you know, 9 o'clock at night. I was like, well, sure. You know, I'm 17 years old and I wasn't living at home. A friend of mine had an apartment in town and I didn't have a job. I didn't have school. I had quit school in 9th grade and I didn't have any schedule or anything to do. So I said, well, sure, I'll go to the temple in Detroit. So we went to the temple and Govardhan, the temple president, came down with a giant maha tray. And I was a macrobiotic. We were eating like brown rice and vegetables and fruits and nuts, miso soup. I mean, we had a really boring food. But we were thinking, you got to be healthy, you know, whatever. Because we were taking a lot of drugs and stuff. And we figured you got to try to counteract it with health food. So we're hippies. We're idiots. What are we going to do? So they hand me a plate with halava and white puris, you know, with powdered sugar on them and gulab jamans and a glass of hot milk with sugar.
Wow.
I hadn't had
Dude, it
milk
would have
for
sent you
about
into
a year.
shock.
And I was like, whoa, you know, and they said, here, eat this. And I was hungry. So I ate it. I'd never tasted anything so sweet in my life. You know, halava, puris, and gulab jamuns, and you wash it down with sugar milk. I was in bliss. I was like, wow, I like this temple. And they said, we got to go to bed now because we get up early. Who knew, how early? So we went to bed. It was about 10:30. And I fell asleep that night on the floor in the brahmachari ashram. There was maybe 30 brahmacharis there. And I fell asleep, and it seemed like I had only been asleep 1 minute. And all of a sudden I hear these, cartels clanging, get up, it's 4:00. I'm like, 4:00? Wow. And when I was but that night, before they woke me up, I had a dream where Krishna came to me in a dream, which I found out later was really rare and really auspicious, because I was just a tripping hippie idiot. But that night I saw Krishna come with this conch shell, and I was like, wow. And then I heard the clang, clang, and I woke up, So we took a shower. They put me in a dhoti, I had hair down to my shoulders and earrings. I was, hippie. And so they tied my hair up, and we went up to Mangal Artik, and I didn't have my glasses on. I was in this phase where I thought, nah, these glasses, these are just, who needs these? Idiot. So when they opened the curtains, I couldn't see Radha Kunja Bihari, which are full-size marble deities. I saw lights and flowers and colors and stuff, and I was like, but when we got to the third altar where Lord Jagannath was, full-size Rath Yatra Jagannath, I was like, oh, I see him. I can see those huge eyes of Jagannath. So that's not far out, So I called my dad the next day and said, I need my glasses. So he sent my glasses over. And when I put my glasses on 2 days later, and I said, oh my God, there's Krishna in the middle. I didn't even see him. The Lord's so kind, though. The devotees were so nice to me. The next morning we had breakfast prasadam, and they said, Prabhanu was the leader. Prabhanu and Mrigendra were the two leaders of that party, and there was a few other devotees. And they were a traveling party from Cleveland, Ohio, which is 200 miles away from where I lived in Ann Arbor. Anyway, they said, so, Bhakta Dan, do you want to go back to Ann Arbor, or would you like to go out and distribute more books? The same thing. I was like, I wanted to go back to Ann Arbor, but at the same time, I was like, if I'm sincere, I'm going to do this. And I said, all right, let's go on Sankirtan. So that's what we did. We went out and we distributed books, and this went on for about a week, staying at the Detroit Temple and then going on Sankirtan. And then every day, Prabhupada would say, you want to go back home? And I go, nah. So one day I fell asleep in the van and I woke up and we were in Cleveland. They had driven back to their base, their temple. And it happened to be Sunday, and we went to the Sunday feast. And after the Sunday feast kirtan, I said, I want to shave up. And they said, hey, Bhakta Dan, he's going to shave up. So they shaved me up, boom. Next thing you know, shaved up. And I just felt like my life had some meaning finally, because when I was 13, I started, using. And, it was all we ever did. It was, get high and listen to music. I mean, that was pretty much all we did. And we'd go out in the river and we'd go out in the woods and get nature, whatever. But we were just lost. I was reading I Ching, ancient Tao philosophy, which is pretty confusing, and trying to think about what's spiritual. I didn't know what yoga meant. I used to ask people. They would have like TM and other yogis in Ann Arbor, and I'd go there and I'd say, well, what's yoga? And they couldn't even really tell me. And the devotees, when I asked them, they had answers for every single question. And I felt like, I guess I'm supposed to do this. I felt like I was home when I was with the devotees. So we were in the Cleveland Temple. We were distributing books, and Mrigendra had talked to LA, and a couple devotees, Janaka Rishi and Tripurari and a couple others had gone out, and they were doing book distribution, but they had gone to LAX into the airport. So Mrigendra goes, hey, we got an airport in Cleveland. Let's go to the airport. So we went to the airport and started distributing books, and the cops came and said, you can't do this, and we did it anyway. And then they said, you can't do this, and we did it anyway. And then they arrested us. So Manasa Chandra, our vice president, he had met this lawyer from the ACLU. And he said, we got a case here because this is freedom of speech. You're an American in a public airport distributing your religion. It's freedom of speech. So go to the airport every day and they'll arrest you. And after 20 arrests, then we'll get a temporary restraining order so you can go in the airport and you won't be arrested. The court will say you can't harass them. Now, I don't know who decided that it was going to be me to go get those 20 arrests. And I mean, they arrest you, handcuffs, fingerprints, mug shots, and they take you downtown to jail. And they take off all your clothes and they give you a weird, striped suit to wear. And then you wait. It's about 4 hours wasted. And then the devotees would pick me up at the jail. And we'd go out on Sankirtan in other places, not in the airport. So I did that 20 consecutive times. I got 20 arrests. But we got the temporary restraining order and we could go to the airport then and they couldn't arrest us. Now, the weirdest thing in that airport, those employees in that airport saw me coming out there every day, and every day the cops taking me away in handcuffs. And after that 20 times, I came back out there and the cops didn't arrest me. So the employees went to the cops and said, "Hey, why don't you arrest him? He's back." And the cops said, "Sorry, the court said we can't arrest him." But there was people in that airport that didn't like us. And we would go out 7 days a week in that airport and distribute as many books as we possibly could. And these crazy people that worked in the airport, they would find books, because when you distribute books, it just happens. Some people leave one here or throw one away. And the employees would find a book and they would rip out pictures of Prabhupada and Krishna, and they would draw like little kids would do, making mustaches and pornographic, dirty things on the pictures of Krishna and Prabhupada. And they would tape them on the wall right near where we would stand and distribute. So we'd come in the morning, we'd look, and there'd be 3 or 4 pictures on the wall of, it looked like, like a 10-year-old kid did it, but these were grown-up people. Actually, one of them was in the management of the airport. So we'd take down the pictures and throw them away, and then we'd start distributing. And then they would always come and try to give us trouble. Like, we put our books in the lockers, and so they would cram things in the lockers so you couldn't open the locker and you couldn't get your books out. We parked the van in the parking lot and they would pop the tires of the van. You come out and all 4 tires are popped. So we had to do this. A devotee would drive out in the van, give us books, and he would drive around. He would come back every hour or so when we needed more books, because we couldn't use the lockers and we couldn't park the van in there without it getting vandalized. Anyway, this went on for months, and there was always tension in the airport. People would come when they had their breaks. When the employees had their breaks, they would come over and they would just say things while we were trying to talk to people. You walk up to a person, say, "Hi, where are you from? Cleveland or out of town? Here, check it out. We're showing everybody the Bhagavad Gita." And then they'd come up and say, "These are the Hare Krishnas. It's a cult. They're a ripoff. Don't listen to them. They have arrested them. They always arrest them when they come out here." And the people would look at them in their uniforms from the airport, and they would look at me, and they're holding the book, and they're like, a lot of them would just go, and they give the book back and go, I'm out of here. I don't want anything to do with this. So these people would harass us like this every day. But guess what? We went out anyway, and we were totally, because every morning we chant our japa, thinking about Sankirtan, and we would read the Bhagavad Gita, and we'd be thinking about Sankirtan. This was our mission. Our one-pointed mission was to distribute as many books as possible. And the airport was a good place to do it, because you stand in one place and people from all over the world come through and take the books all over the world, and it's climate controlled. If it rains, who cares? If it's cold, doesn't matter. Anyway, this is a really amazing part of this story, because I was going out there every day, 7 days a week. And this other devotee, Pierre Charan, who happened to look like me, skinny guy with glasses, we kept saying, "Come to the airport." And he'd say, "I'm reading marketing books. I'm reading sales books. I'm trying to learn how to sell." And we're like, "Yeah, just come out and sell some books. You'll be fine." Anyway, for months, he would stay at the temple and read these books about how to sell things. For some unknown reason, one day I had to go to the dentist in the morning. And that was the day that Pierre Chan said, "I'm going to the airport." And I said, "Well, I'll see you in the afternoon. I have a dentist appointment." So I go to the dentist, and then on the way back from the dentist to go to the airport, I stop at the temple to get some Mahaprasadam for us. Now, when I got to the temple, there was a phone call from the hospital out by the airport that Pierre Charan was in a coma. And they wouldn't tell me on the phone what happened or anything. They just said, you should come and see your friend. So what? So anyway, I go up to the airport, right near the airport's this hospital. I go in, I see him. He's laying there unconscious. He has a broken jaw, 2 black eyes, broken nose. He's all bloody. And I go, well, what happened? And they go, we don't know. I guess he got beat up. So well, I didn't know anything. I said, Hare Krishna Prabhu, I'll stop by on the way. But he didn't know I was even there. He was unconscious. So I go to the airport. Now, the backstory, this is the killer part. There was a guy that, the only reason I know this, there was an employee at one of the stores who witnessed what happened to Pierre Tron. And the poor Pierre Tron, he was such a nice devotee. He walks out there after not going on Sankirtan for months. He had never been in the airport. He walks out there to distribute books, and he looks like me. He's a skinny Hare Krishna with glasses selling books. There was a big guy who had been waiting out there, and as soon as Pierre Tron walked out there, the guy tapped him on the shoulder and punched him in the nose, knocked him down. He was unconscious on the floor. Then he grabbed his ears and he beat his head on the floor. Then he kicked his face. That's how they broke the jaw. He kicked his face. Then he ran down the stairs, and some employee threw him a set of keys to a car that was parked in the no parking zone right in front of the airport. It was a hit. This was actually planned to take me out. Those people in that airport hated me so much. Anyway, the bizarre thing is, a couple hours later, I come walking in the airport like nothing happened. I'm distributing books. I go, God, there's that skinny Hare Krishna with glasses out there selling books. I thought we beat the crap out of him. I mean, I laugh because it's so bizarre. What a bizarre story. Poor Pierre Tron, it took him about 6 weeks to recover. He did come out of the coma the next day, and then we brought him to the temple, and he had to lay in a dark room for about 6 weeks. And God bless him, when he healed, he came out on Sankirtan with me. But the people in the airport, they just didn't know what's going on. You know, here's this guy, he's unstoppable. Anyway, so we're in the airport in Cleveland, and we were doing on a good day 20 hardbound books and collecting about $120 or $130. That was like a good day. And Tripurari Maharaj in Chicago said, well, what's going on with Cleveland? These guys, they're not doing very well. So he sent, thank Prabhupada, he sent Vaisheshika Prabhu there. And he also sent Kashi Ram, and there was others. Naikatma came, Kalki came. But Vaisheshika, Vaish became my dearmost friend when I met him then. And Vaish went to that airport with us, and after 1 week, he called Tripurari and said, 20 books is a big day here because it's a slow airport, it's all business. You know, there's no like tourists, and it's not that busy. So, but our idea was like, how do we get out of here and get to Chicago? Because when you get to Chicago, you can do a lot more books. And at that time, you couldn't just, brahmacharis couldn't just pack up and leave. You know, we were, it's a weird way to say it, but we were like the property of the temple, you know. I mean, if you were a Detroit devotee, or if you were a Cleveland devotee or a Chicago devotee, it meant something. You couldn't just go, nah, I'm going to Chicago. Anyway, when I met Vaish got me into reading and chanting my rounds more. And because I'd chant my rounds in the morning and I'd usually take a nap. I was so tired from doing the airport. But Vaish said, no. We're going to read a chapter of the Gita every day. And it was chapter 2. 72 verses. So it's like, we're reading this every day. And on the way to the airport, we would read Nectar of Devotion, Sri Ishapanishad, and we'd sing prayers to the 6 Goswamis. I mean, whenever we weren't selling, we were reading. And that's what really saved my life. Vaish would drag me along with him and say, I'd say, I'm too tired to read. He'd say, walk. So I'd be reading, I'd be pacing back and forth reading Bhagavad Gita because he made me do it. And thank you, Prabhupada, for sending Vaish. So anyway, we ended up going to India. And after India, there was we got together with a GBC and a couple presidents, and I said, you know what? We can increase the book distribution if Divyanga comes to Chicago. And it was me, and Jiva Goswami was with me too. He was a good book distributor. And when I got to Chicago O'Hare, instead of doing 20 books a day, I started doing 60, 70, and 80 big books a day. And it was like, and plus we had a 26 devotees in that airport. It was a huge party. It was like, I mean, everybody was there. Tripurari, Pragosh, Rita, all these devotees, Ganapati. And every day we all got together. We chanted our japa. And one thing I'll say about Tripurari Maharaj, I mean, he was really good sales. He was just charismatic, and people bought books from him, even though they didn't want them. And I loved him for that. But the most that thing that I learned from him was how to be a good sadhaka, how to practice. Vaish and him together especially made me take shelter of reading. Because when I'm reading, I feel peaceful, happy, and it keeps me focused. I know what I'm doing. So we moved to Chicago after that. It was 1976 Mayapur Festival. So me and Jiva and Gopati too. Gopati was this sweet devotee from Cleveland who was one of the best cooks in the movement. So we all ended up in Chicago. Thank you, Prabhupada. Thank you, Krishna. And started doing O'Hare, which was one of the hardest places to do it, but it was one of the best places to do it because it was so busy. We used to go out there 9 a.m, and sometimes me and Manasuda would stay out there till 10 at night. And Manasuda would do 70, 80 books every day, collect $400 every day. And it was like, it was ecstasy. I mean, like, materially, people looking at us thinking, like, who are these kids out here in the airport selling books that they say nobody wants? So they started making these announcements in the airport saying, you will be approached by religious personnel seeking money donations for literature. The airport has nothing to do with them and in no way endorses them. So this, I mean, every 3 minutes, this announcement would come on. Most people didn't hear it, but we heard it over and over. And one time my father was flying through. He was a business exec out of Detroit for Ford, and he would fly a lot. And he'd always come and find me in the airport. And when he heard that, he said, this is no good. They can't do this. So he went upstairs in the airport management, and he wrote a written complaint on Ford Stationery. And he said, if you don't stop this, we're going to sue you. So for a little while, they actually stopped. My dad just thought it up, just did that for no reason. I don't know. He just got inspired to try to stand up for, his son's out there practicing freedom of religion. He deserves to be able to do that, even though my father wasn't into it. My father liked Prabhupada and Krishna because he got his son off of the street and off of the drugs. My father thanked the devotees. He came down to Cleveland to visit because my mom told him, my mom said, do you know what a Hare Krishna is? And he said, yeah, those bald-headed nuts down there, they chant on the street downtown Detroit. And she goes, well, your son is one of them. And they found out that there was rules. No drugs, no alcohol, no sex. And my father said, well, he's not going to last a week in that place. So he didn't believe it because I've been gone 3 months. He's like, something's going on. So he took a business trip to Cleveland just to see. And when he came in, we had a board up there on Sankirtan results. And my name was at the top. And it said the number and the Lakshmi points. And my dad's like, see, my son's a good salesman, huh? And then he thanked all the devotees for saving my son. He was just a hippie taking acid all the time. So my father loved the ISKCON for saving his son. But I was really impressed when he went up and made that complaint. Anyway, so that's what we did. Every day we would get up early, chant our rounds, and then we'd read. And with Tripurari, it was if you weren't selling books, you were reading them. That's what we did. And every single night we'd have hot milk and we would read Krishna book. It was like, time just flies by. When you're spending 8 to 10 hours a day on book distribution. And of course, there's 3 or 4 or 5 hours in the morning, sadhana and reading in the morning programs. It was, I don't know, it was amazing. And of course, Kishori, we had the best prasadam. Uddhama Sloka was our temple president, and he made sure that we had first-class prasadam all the time. And when we got that letter from Prabhupada, Prabhupada said, when any guest arrives, there should be hot prasadam. Immediately, Uddhama Sloka went out and got, steam tables. So there was dal, rice, sabji, and chapatis and halava every day, warm, anytime he showed up at the Chicago temple. It was first class. And our Sunday feasts were crazy, crazy good, really sweet. So we had this huge party. Like I said, there was 26 devotees in the airport every day. And we were distributing 600 to 700 hardbound books a day and hundreds of small books. And they had two devotees that weren't distributors. They would just walk up and down O'Hare with a huge cart full of books and a huge igloo full of hot prasadam. It was usually khichdi and chapatis and halva, like that. I mean, because we were out there, we weren't messing around. We get out there at 9 in the morning. We didn't come back till 9 or 10 at night. And, it's just, you could only hold maybe 10 books in your book bag. And then so the devotee would keep coming around. And you go, Jitendriya, I need some more books, and that's how we did it. And, when I look back at it, I joined when I was 17. I am 67 now. And to this day, all I do is Sankirtan. I've never had a job. I don't have, of course, in Sankirtan, you don't have a salary. You don't have any benefits, no medical. No, it's all you got is the mercy of Krishna and Prabhupada, which is all you really need. But my whole adult life, I've had people going, really? That's what you're going to do? You're just going to go out and sell books? And then the airport's all closed. 30 years ago, they came out and said, you can't do it in the airport anymore. And then now what are you going to do? Anyway, there's no pension. My father used to say that. He'd go, you're going to sell these books and you're going to get older. I'm going to do them. What are you going to do? Because, you go out and sell books, you collect money. You don't sell books, there's no residual income and there's no pension waiting at the end for you. And, I never, they told me not to quit school too. And I did it anyway. And I don't regret it. When I was young, they do those tests, and they told my parents, he's really special, he's got a 142 IQ, he's a genius. My father and mother were like, yeah, right, he's some genius. And I remember in 8th grade, I got the highest grade in the school in algebra, but I hated school. I just hated it. So I just stopped going. And they were like, you can't do that. My father used to say, if you don't go to school, you're going to end up working in a car wash. And I said, I don't care. I didn't know I was going to surrender my life to Krishna, but I knew I wasn't going to go to school. And, I got fortunate. The Lord saved me. I don't know why. I must have done something right in some life. But I can say to this day, I go out 5 days a week and distribute books. That's what I do. That's how I support my family. My wife's a teacher, and she makes not much. And I go out and sell books, and whatever Krishna gives us, that's what we have. And I've always felt that Krishna takes care of me. And I don't, every day, even when I don't feel like going, because then I'm tired, it's hot. Here in Florida, it was 101 2 days ago. And I was out there distributing books. Now, I do have skin cancer, and I've had 4 surgeries. And the doctors always say, whatever you do, stay out of the sun. But they don't know me. They don't know I'm a crazy book distributor, and I got to distribute books. And there's no airports. There's no shade. You have to go out and wherever people are. So I end up in parking lots and malls and sometimes football games or concerts. Wherever there's people, I just walk up to them like I'm in the airport and hand them books and say, we don't sell them. We just take a donation. That's what I do. I give them lollipops. I give them books. I give them mantra cards. And there are days where I'm like, oh, God, I don't want to go out there. It's hot. And I go out anyway, and I always feel like I'm so glad I came out. I always meet people that, I do meet other people. There's negative too. When you go out and try to hand somebody a Bhagavatam or a Gita or something, you never know what they're going to say. But many, many people really appreciate it. And one of my favorite lines I got from Vaish is, these books are on yoga and meditation. They talk about how to get free from stress. And I say, you ever heard of stress? And they all go, oh, my job, my kids, my life. And I say, read this book. It talks about how to get in touch with yourself, higher consciousness, and be happy. And that is true. I mean, I know what it meant to me. Because, I was a hippie and I was trying to enjoy my life. And I had a nice girlfriend, but she broke my heart and went with some other guy. And I was unhappy. I remember singing Hare Krishna to My Sweet Lord one night. I was walking home just sad. And George's tune, came to me, and I was singing Hare Krishna. I don't know why, but it made me feel better. So, I'm like a weirdo because I never really made a plan. When I got in that van, I just felt like this is a good thing. And I couldn't say no to the devotees when they asked me to go on Sankirtan. And I'm so glad, because I asked Mrigendra, how do you make spiritual advancement? And he said, by pleasing the guru. And he said, you know how you please the guru? And I said, no, how? And he said, by sharing Krishna consciousness with others. And the best way to share it is by distributing books. So if you distribute Prabhupada's books, you'll get in his grace and you'll go back to Godhead. And I was like, I'm doing it. And that's what I've done. Like I said, I've taken a lot of, even devotees have told me things like, you can't just sell books all your life. You're getting old. You can't. And I'm like, yes, I can. Prabhupada left India when he was 70. I'm only 67. And look what Prabhupada did. And, there are devotees out there like Vaish and Radhanath Swami, that really took Prabhupada's mercy. It's like it says here in the Ishopanishad. The wise have explained one result is derived from the culture of knowledge, and a different result is obtained from the culture of nescience. So Prabhupada gave everybody the same mercy. I mean, he gave Vaish the same thing he gave me. And look at Vaish. He's exalted. He's saintly. Because he had one pointed attention. I, on the other hand, when Prabhupada left, I blooped, and I had some trouble for a few months. In fact, it's funny because Ganesham and Tripurari were traveling together, and they came to Detroit. And I had been there for a few months after I left Chicago when Prabhupada left. And I went to the class, and I listened to Tripurari's class. And then at the end of the class, he left. But Ganesham came back down, and he got me, and he goes, Div, Maharaj wants to see you. And I was embarrassed, I was like, all right. So I went up, hey, Hare Krishna, paid obeisances. He goes, Divyanga, what are you doing? And I was like, nothing. And he goes, well, come on, you got to come back on the party. So I did. I couldn't say no to Tripurari. So I had this car that somebody gave me, and I had some stuff. So I sold the car, and I got rid of my stuff, and I got out of the apartment I was in. And I got in the van with Tripurari, Ganesham, and Brahmananda Swami. What a party. Oh, and Bhakta John was there. I don't know what happened to him. So there was me, Bhakta John, Ganesham, who was my dear Bhakta Tirtha Maharaj, my dear friend. He was so nice to me. So I joined that van. Again, I'm a van joiner. Somebody has a van full of books and they want distributors, I get in. Tripurari wouldn't. I couldn't say no to him. So I got in the van and we went to Chicago. Now that night, I shaved up again because it had been, 4 months or something. And devotees were going, some of the fringe devotees in the Chicago, they came and said, hey, Div, how's it going? What are you doing? You're shaving up and joining Tripurari? And I said, yeah. They thought I was nuts. And I was like, yeah. That night after I shaved up, I went to bed. Prabhupada came to me in a dream. I've only seen Prabhupada 3 times in dreams. And that was one time. Because it was one of those things where you got rid of your car, you got rid of your apartment, you're going back in the ashram. And a lot of people thought that was radical. Now remember, I was still only like 22 or something, 23. And I still had no plans at all. I was just I didn't know what I was going to do. When Prabhupada left, I just freaked out. I didn't know what to think. Anyway, so we traveled around. Our thing was selling sets of books. Back in the old days when we were selling standing orders, they weren't even made yet. The books weren't even printed yet. We had several books, and we said, here's the set. We give you these, and then when they come out, we send you the rest. So me and Ganesham and Tripurari would drive around, and we had appointments. We'd see 10 or 12 people a day and sell sets of books. Now Ganesham, Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, he was the most austere guy. He got up at 2:30 and chanted all his rounds, like 30 rounds. And then he'd go to the programs, and I was really, really, really tired when I came back because I'd been out there for a while. And in the morning, he'd come and wake me up. All right, Div, it's Mangal Arati. And I go, okay, I'll be there. And I'd roll over and go back to sleep. And then he'd come back, and he'd say, Div, it's Japa. You need to chant your rounds. I go, yeah, I'll be there. I'd go back to sleep. Finally, he'd come and say, it's Guru Puja. It's now or never. Come and see your spiritual master. Worship Prabhupada and Guru Puja. And so I'd get up. And then after breakfast, now breakfast for us was regular prasadam, khichdi and stuff, fruit and stuff. But Ganesham would eat 2 carrots, 2 chapatis, and like a palm full of yogurt. That's all he ate. And that's after he'd been up since 3 and chanted 30 rounds. And he was serving out the devotees. He always wanted to serve Prasadam. And so I got to go out with him selling books all day. And we'd get in the car, and he said, the first day, he said, Div, I know you didn't chant your rounds, so I'm going to drive, and you're going to chant your rounds. And I'm sitting there trying to chant my rounds, but he was falling asleep driving. I was like, hey. I said, I'm sorry, Ganesham. I'd rather, be alive than finish these rounds this way. I'm driving. So I would drive, and we would go out in Sankirtan. And then usually around 1 o'clock in the afternoon, he'd say, pull over to the grocery store, go in, get some fruit, yogurt, get something to eat. And he would chant japa, and he wouldn't even eat lunch. He was so spiritual, and he was so nice. He wasn't one of these austere guys that was mad at you because you didn't do it. He was like, I know you're hungry, and he'd give me some money. He'd say, go in there and get something to eat. I'd get a banana and a peach, and whatever. I loved Ganesham. He was my dear, dear friend. I only lasted on that party for a couple of months. I really wasn't ready to go back to ashram life, but I did go out to the airport and distribute books, and we had a lot of I had a lot of good association with Ganesham and Tripurari, and I really I felt like Prabhupada was bringing me back in, because in the dream when I shaved up, Prabhupada said, so, do you want to serve me? And I said, oh, Prabhupada, I just want to sell your books. And Prabhupada said, that's okay. And he was telling me that I had to go to school. He goes, you got to go to school. And I'm like, no, I just want to sell your books. And Prabhupada said, that's all right. Don't worry about it. He made me feel so like he wasn't mad at me for blooping. When I blooped, I was so ashamed that for a while I wouldn't come around. Of course, then I met a lot of my friends that had also blooped. And so in Detroit, there was a huge outside of the temple community of bloop devotees. And we would all go to the temple for the Sunday feast, and we'd hang out together and stuff. But I always felt like if I'm not on Sankirtan, I'm in Maya. And I was. I really was too. I was a young guy. I was looking for sense gratification. I'm a Vishai. However, I decided I need to surrender to book distribution and find a way to do it. So I got married, and I figured that I can do it the right way. Go to, control yourself. All right, you can't be a brahmachari, so you got to get married. So I got married, and and my wife was a really nice devotee Prabhupada disciple, and she was totally supportive with my Sankirtan. She was a florist. She used to be the head pujari in Cleveland, and she made all these beautiful floral arrangements, so she became a florist, and that was our business. And so her business supported my Sankirtan. When the Sankirtan wasn't good, the business was good, and we lived together pretty well for about 9 years. Anyway, the whole time I'm distributing books. Even when I was blooped, I would give people books because I felt so guilty, and I was like, well, at least I can hand somebody a book. And if you weren't around devotees, they didn't really criticize you, for having hair or for doing stupid things like, we're prone to do. So I distributed books even when I was blooped. I can say that too. And it kept me connected with Prabhupada. And somehow or other, I always was blessed to listen to Prabhupada. I used to, back in the old days when they had the cassette tapes, they would send me the cassette tapes, like 5 or 6 cassette tapes every month. And I would driving around, listening to Prabhupada lectures all the time. And that got me back into it too. And then, of course, when I started chanting my rounds again, that helped a lot. Because once you start your sadhana again, you have, you get momentum going, you get some spiritual strength. Otherwise, you're floundering out there in the modes. And believe me, it was the modes were a lot heavier after I blooped, it seemed to me, than before, But like today I went out, and this guy comes up and he goes, hey, you can't do this. I was just in a parking lot somewhere. There's hundreds of cars, people walking around. I'm distributing books. You can't do this. What is this? Some kind of scam? And I said, no, what are you talking about? And I handed him a book. I said, no, this is what it is. It talks about how to get free from stress. And this old guy was really stressed out. And he goes, really? He grabs the book and he looks at it and he goes, what is this? I can't pronounce this. And I said, just take it home and read it. It's real simple. And the guy changed. He was mellow. He said, all right. He said, I'm sorry, I have a negative attitude. I said, no, everybody does. We're trying to make it positive with this philosophy. And it is true. Anybody who reads anything that Prabhupada ever said or wrote can eventually get out of here and go back to Godhead, but at least get some kind of vision, some kind of guidance and hope. And I remember how much that meant to me when I was young and when the devotees gave me books and gave me prasadam. And I just know that I owe, the devotee has the debt to a spiritual master that can never be repaid, but he has to try every day. The main way we try, as Prabhupada said, you have to be serious and sincere. And if you're serious, you'll practice what you promised to practice. And if you're sincere, you'll do it even when you're not being watched. So that's what serious and sincere means. And when a devotee gets some spiritual strength and he's chanting his japa and he's reading the books and he's doing service, that's the beauty of Krishna consciousness. Even if you're Jagai and Madai, you get saved. Jagai and Madai were really degraded, but the Lord gave him prem. So that gives us hope. And I always, like I said, I bring it down to what it meant to me. When I see a person who's going to walk by me and go into the store and buy some whatever, I think I got to help this person because they're not going to get help in there. So I give them the book no matter what. And sometimes they don't like it. Sometimes they like it. You never know what's going to happen on Sankirtan. It's an adventure. And but 9 times out of 10, it's positive. And I feel protection out there. I don't feel like I'm doing something crazy. Some people might think, oh, this is crazy. You're walking around in a parking lot, walking up to strangers, handing them books from India that they can't even pronounce the words. But I just feel that any jiva that gets a book, his life is changed. It could be changed as much as mine. I was just a total loser, just a hippie. And then Prabhupada said, come on. And all you got to do is say, okay. And then you can join the party. So Prabhupada says, he wrote a verse, Krishnara lagiya yeva nitya yuda kori, riddhi siddhi gyanatara mustira bitore, that whoever daily fights the battle of life for Lord Krishna's sake discovers prosperity, mystic perfection, and transcendental knowledge in the palm of his hand. Now that's inspirational, isn't it? All you got to do is fight the daily battle of life only for Lord Krishna's sake. And that's what we do. That's what preachers do. They give the opportunity to the lost jiva to have a choice. Because the people I meet, they are lost. They are really lost. I go down to this retirement community, and there's over 200,000 yuppies, people with good money that retired there, and they're in their 80s and 90s. And I go up to them, and I know these people aren't long for this world. They got to get a book because they're going to die. And I give them, and they have a joke down there that they say, we're toads. We've come here to croak. Because pretty much that's what they do. And down there, all there is there's restaurants and bars and retail stores, and then there's doctors' offices all over the place. And these poor people are trying to enjoy, their retirement because they have money, they have pensions, they have medical insurance, they have all those things that are supposed to make the end of life better. Forget about it. These people are old and suffering. They can hardly walk. And they're out there walking with walkers, and some of them in wheelchairs. And I go right up to them and I go, here. And I give them books. And I tell them, these talk about how to get out of stress, how to get free from anxiety. And they love it. I just feel like if I don't do that, who's going to do it? And I don't know. I feel like I don't know what I did to deserve it, but I feel really fortunate to be somebody who's dedicated to Prabhupada's book distribution. It's all I do. This is all I do. This is I request. Listen to this. You're trying for a new temple there. But our main business is Sankirtan, distribution of our literature. If Krishna gives us a better place, that's all right. Otherwise, we can remain anywhere. Never mind hell or heaven. But we should only be very cautious about propagating the Sankirtan movement. This is Prabhupada's mood. The whole mood is to take what you've learned and share it with the other jivas. And there's 7 billion, more than that now, on the planet, and most of them are not in devotional service. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done. Prabhupada says, if you simply push on this one activity of distributing my books, your all success will be there. I have hatched this transcendental plot for getting money by selling my books. If we stick only to this plan, use our brain for selling books, there will easily be sufficient money. So I take shelter in Prabhupada's words all the time. I read them every single day. It's the only hope. And when I hear Prabhupada say over and over again, go out and share what I've given you, that makes me feel like I'm a good devotee, like I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. Anyway.
Joy.
Precious. That's very precious, Prabhu.
Thank you.
Your dedication and your determination to use your lifetime in this, your lifespan in this lifetime to be close to Srila Prabhupada in the book distribution and obeying his instructions. It's easy to get away from this world of the Krishna consciousness. It's so easy. It's absolutely easy because Maya is so powerful, it's so entertaining, and I would say it's so delicious to enjoy that. However, despite the situation, despite you being thrown here and then back to Krishna consciousness to do what your master instruct you to do, even in your dreams, he was so loving and with you. He said, it's okay, it's okay. And you can feel that power, that love, even in the dreams of him, of him. And he definitely, you are the son of him, so favorite. And I appreciate that because it takes something for someone to do that. Because when Maya slapped us, we just in the world of Maya, it is so easy to get just distracted with that. It's so easy.
It sure is.
Oh,
I still get distracted
yeah.
all the time. I get up at 3 and I chant my rounds. I go to the Mangal Artik, and then I have my program. I do a chapter of Gita, and I do 19 pages of the CC. If you read 19 pages of Chaitanya Charanamrita, you can read it in a year. And I've done that about 9 times now. And I really like that. So in the morning from 3 to 9, those first 6 hours, that's sadhana. Still, there's days I walk out of the temple, and depending what I see, I completely forget the 6 hours I just spent with Prabhupada. Because Maya, like you said, Maya's like, hey, Div, remember me? And I'm like, wow, yeah, I remember you. Like I said before, if you cultivate Krishna, then you get exalted, you get blissful, you get spiritual. If you cultivate sense gratification, you just get kicked in the face and you have to suffer. And you think it's going to be fun, or you think, oh, maybe this time I'll like it, but you don't. And believe me, I've tried many, many, many times. I've had a lot of detours on the path. And every time I come back with my tail between my legs going, oh, Prabhupada, please forgive me. And, it's just easier when you're good. It's easier to be good than it is to try to get away with being bad.
Yes. Yeah. It's so enticing nowadays, every corner that you turn, that's Maya teasing you. And you just get like, wow, tantalized by it. And especially now, like with the devotees, male devotees, everything, radio or in a newspaper or the TV or any announcement,
Screen.
Maya is right there. Yes, it's like
TikTok.
Wow. Yes, but all of this lifetime. Sorry, Prabhu. How old did you say you were?
67.
67. And for about 50 years of your life, you have you have dedicated to Srila Prabhupada, regardless of flips here and there, but you come back because you know there is nothing better than Srila Prabhupada's mission, you know, your master, our master's instructions. And I appreciate that.
I feel really, really blessed to be able to do it.
Mm.
I met Vaisheshika in 2000 in Japan, and he was still chanting a chapter of Bhagavad Gita every day. We did the 15th chapter while we were there.
He's unstoppable. He reads 41 pages a day of the Bhagavatam, and every year he reads the entire Bhagavatam.
Epic.
And he travels all over, and he's got disciples, and he does all kinds of stuff. He does, you know, he does weddings and anadan and moondans. He does all this stuff for his community. At the same time, he does his puja in the morning, and he does all of his sadhana, and he still calls me 3-4 times a week to make sure I haven't blooped again.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm really
Such a
blessed
good
to have
friend.
my lifeline, Vice. He dragged me along all these years. We worked in the airport together for years. We did Cleveland, we did Chicago, and then we did St. Louis. And we had so much trouble in the Chicago airport at one time. I won't get into the details, but there was this family that what it was is this mother and her kid joined the temple, but the father was against it, right? So then instead of giving the kid back, the kid was a minor, right? He was 12 or 13. And the parents said, give my kid back. And they wouldn't. The devotees hid him in another temple. So the parents and a whole bunch of their friends came to the airport every day, and they broke up sales. Seriously. I mean, they practically stopped book distribution in O'Hare. And so what we did is Uddhama Sloka, our president, said, all right, well, you go to the different airports. So somebody went to New York. I went to the first place I went was New Orleans, and then New York, and then Philadelphia, all the different airports that they still let us do it. And there wasn't crazy people in there ruining the place. But we ended up in St. Louis. And then me and Vaish had another 8 years together in St. Louis. And that's when, like I said, when I met him, he was doing a chapter of Bhagavad Gita every day, and that was unheard of. I mean, we didn't do that. I'd open the book, and after 2 sentences, I'd fall asleep. And that was our standard before Vaish came. Vaish came and said, hey, you got to read. So that's what I did, and I'm so glad, because I love to read Prabhupada's books. I mean, I chant my japa because I'm supposed to, and I believe that it will purify my heart. And someday I'll get a taste for it, I hope. But I love reading. I read Prabhupada's books, and I'm happy. It's easy for me to read. It's difficult to control my mind and chant. When I chant, I put Prabhupada on the screen in front of me. He's chanting japa, that video in L.A. He's putting on his tilak, and then he's chanting japa. And I also listen to japa Prabhupada chanting. And I still get distracted. And I look at my deities, my Istadev, Panchatatman Prabhupada here, and we have Krishna and Balaram, and I try to think of Krishna when I'm chanting, but it's very difficult. Although I do it every day and I like it. I like doing my japa. It's work for me. But reading, I open the book and it's easy. I just love it. So anyway, that's what I do.
The other thing I really hear in your sharing, Prabhu, is the totalitarian war on Maya. You know, the Param Vijayate Sri Krishna Sankirtanam, total world victory of Hare Krishna, and the pushback from that. Like, it's like really is like threatening to overwhelm the world with love of Godhead and the material energy. You know, the Matrix is just like pushing back on that. You know, just like I hear a world conquering movement. Yeah.
That was the mood. I mean, you know, when you're in O'Hare Airport and you got 26 devotees distributing, that's a huge thing. It was huge. And we were unstoppable. It was like a force. Everybody knew Hare Krishna's in the airport selling books. They made jokes on the movies, on TV. You'd always hear some jokes, you know, Hare Krishna's in the airport. And then we were like, yeah, Hare Krishna's in the airport. It was Krishna gave us the airport because Prabhupada said distribute books. And that was the best place to do it. Amazing. I mean, I think back about it, and this is another funny thing. In Cleveland again, the second in charge of the airport management, this guy was, anyway, his name was Oberst, Mr. Oberst. We called him Oberst Asura. And he would come out every day and harass us, literally tell people, don't buy their books. And we had these cloth book bags that the women had made for us full of books. And one day, we don't know why he did this, he grabbed the book bag from Jiva, and Jiva Goswami just held that book bag and they went around and around. Manasa Chandra had a video camera that his mom gave him. And he's filming this guy, the second director of the airport, pulling the book bag away from this devotee. And the book bag rips apart and the books go flying all over the floor. And I go, zoom in, Manasa Chandra. And Manasa Chandra's filming him and the guy looks and he's like, ah! We showed that to the judge. When we were going in to get our temporary restraining order, we showed the video to the judge. And the judge said, this is absurd. You know, anyway. And we had that video. We used to show it in the Brahmachari ashram on the wall. We don't know what happened to it. I called back there after I moved to Chicago. I said, anybody know what happened to that video? And they weren't into it. They didn't know what happened to it. But it was so funny because G was holding on it and they're going around and around and it just books all over the place. And we had it on video. I mean, it was the way it was out there. We had a brawl out there a couple times. These guys came out that worked in the airport when they weren't working, and they said, we're going to beat you guys up. So we got a bunch of devotees to come out. And really, I mean, we walked in that airport that day, and there was 3 of us distributors, and then there was 6 devotees that were just going to fight. And it was a brawl. The cops had to come and break it up. It was crazy. I mean, people were getting punched and knocked down. It was bizarre. Right in the airport, right in the terminal, just like whatever. And we didn't start it, but we weren't going to take it either. Anyway.
Yes.
Yeah, it's awesome. I'm just going to stop the camera for a second because our internet connection's a bit shaky. This is something I noticed has changed. You know, like Tripurari Swami, in talking about those days, he says Srila Prabhupada was running it like a spiritual terrorist organization. You know, that, you know, they're kind of like any news is good news. You know, like we got to get in the news, we got to get in people's faces. You know, like even your man Oberst Asura. And I heard others, you know, like they're ripping the pictures out of Prabhupada and Krishna and they're drawing those things on them, putting them on the wall. They're interacting with Krishna. They're reacting. They're reacting to our initiative. And then it's kind of like now this kind of mentality has crept in where unless it's like so-called favorable publicity, unless like the United Nations is praising us for being part of their agenda, it's like it's bad. And more kind of like desirable than that is that people say nothing about us. Like if people are saying nothing about us, that's not a problem. But if people are like, you know, saying, oh, those Hare Krishnas, this, that, you know, then that's bad. Whereas what I hear in this is like, we don't care what they say about us as long as they're saying something about us. Like,
and probably
they will
would count how
react
many
to
times
us.
they said Hare Krishna in the article. And say, yeah, it's good. They said Hare Krishna 20 times in that article, even though they said, we don't like the Hare Krishna. All those Krishnas, all those Hare Krishnas.
Yeah, they're chanting.
I mean, you know, the beauty of the new book distribution by Vaish is that it's not guerrilla warfare. It's like happy, sweet, nice. They bring kids out with them on Sankirtan. In ISV in California, they have little kids and teenagers and everybody goes out on book distribution. And it's not a weird, heavy thing. They go door to door. They go to Indian stores. They go all over the place. So they even go to Walmart parking lots like I do. And they distribute books. And it's pretty rare that anybody gets mad at them. They're so nice, you know, and Vaish has trained them all up and they're very spiritual. And and we do it here in Alachua. We have the monthly Sankirtan Festival, and there's several women that do this. They set up a book table. You can only get spots 3, 4, 5 times a year, but you get them, and then you have a book table, and you set up, and you do it. And it's really, I mean, whoever wants to come and get a book comes and gets a book. It's not like 26 devotees in your face in the airport. God, I miss the airport.
And at the same time, like we watched the video of Tripurari Swami and Pragosh distributing in the airport the other night. And we heard the announcement, and the video is so well made. It's got the announcement and Pragosh is distributing a book and someone walks past and just like you said, is pointing up, like, hey, you're listening to that announcement. These guys are like, and the guy who's like taking the book from Pragosh is kind of like, hey, I'm an adult, I can make up my own mind. And then they pan across to they actually made a sign that said the same thing, like there's signs around there that say that. But you know what? That like propelled, like you said, Hare Krishna in the movies, the airport movies, like incense or non-incense, that like, it's on the transcendental platform, there is no negative. The people they're chanting, it's Namabas.
That's
what
right.
That is.
There's no bad way. Hare Krishna. If somebody says Hare Krishna, they just got tons of benefit.
Yeah, exactly. And jokingly and jest for musical entertainment, to criticize the devotees on Sankirtan, however they chant the name, it's like we're just going to get them to chant it. And that was the mood, and like I just really love that. The overflow, threaten to overwhelm the world with love of Godhead, like put them on notice.
It's funny because in San Francisco airport, they were doing the announcements, and Vaish is just so incredibly transcendentally intelligent. He would tell them, yeah, hear the announcement. He's like, we're part of the airport here.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's us.
This is our official disclaimer,
Exactly.
Terms and conditions. You're listening.
They didn't know. They thought it was good. They didn't pay any attention to what it said. They just heard it. And Vice goes, hear that? That's us. And he'd just shut up and they'd buy books. It was
we're officially endorsed by here's our official announcement.
Then they put these big signs printing it, Nobody reads them. The signs on the wall doesn't mean anything. But the airport was they just couldn't stand it that we'd stand there in the airport and people give us money. It drove them crazy. And I remember standing there, me and Manasuda, just standing there selling books. And then somebody come up and say, you rip-offs, you cult crazy people. And we just laugh. We were in ecstasy. We were selling 80 big books a day. We didn't care if some janitor didn't like it. So many people came up and just told us right in our face, you shouldn't even be here. You shouldn't do this. This is horrible. And we're like, Hare Krishna. I'd do it again. My father asked me that once before he passed away, because he was in the car business and he made a lot of money marketing for Ford. And he would say, I can get you a job. You can make money. You can sell anything. And I'm like, I don't want to sell cars. I want to sell Prabhupada's books. And my father was like, come on. You can make a lot of money. You can always go out and sell books on the weekend, stuff like that. And I was like, sorry, Dad, I can't get inspired to sell Fords. It's different. They don't understand, and people watch us and they think we're just doing it for the money. They have no idea. Like Tripurari said, we had a book bag. And when we traveled, we had our dhotis in it and our toothbrush. And then when we got to the temple, we filled it with books. That's all we had. And each devotee, anybody that was worth his salt, was doing $300-400 a day. But it didn't matter. It wasn't like I was keeping it, Every time we turn in that Lakshmi every day, we'd like, wow, another $300 for Prabhupada's mission, But the people in the airport just thought we were making money, and selling people books that you can't even read. They would say that to people. Look at it. Open that book. And you open the Bhagavatam, you see the Sanskrit. They go, can you read that? And I go, look, we translated it for you. It's a book. It's an invention. You'll read them and learn stuff. But, when you're out there dealing with lower than Shudra people that are totally covered, there's nothing you can do. You can't. We give them prasadam. The devotees in St. Louis, they would make cheesecakes and donuts and bring them out to the employees. And they loved it, some of those people that didn't like us after they ate the cookies and the cheesecakes, they liked us. And they started thinking, oh, who cares if they're taking money from these people? What do we care? You know, because they didn't really know why they hated us. They just did. People would come up to me all the time and say horrible things. And they'd be pilots, and they'd be, you know, stewardesses and stuff, people that worked and had jobs and uniforms, supposed to be civilized people. And they just come up and swear at you and say, you know.
You know why they do that, Prabhu? I can tell you why they do that. Because they do not know that they have joined a cult. The people on this planet are cult members. They've joined the cult of the Asuras, and they don't know it. They're brainwashed cult members. Yeah, the whole planet has been taken over. It's an Asura cult on here, man. It's crazy.
It's like Prabhupada says in a purport. He said, it's a colossal hoax. That you can enjoy the material world is a colossal hoax. And people buy into it. And even though they're suffering all the time, I mean, when you go out on Sankirtan, I see families. I see mothers and kids fighting. I see husbands and wives fighting. I see people drinking. I see people smoking. Everybody's just miserable, eating meat. And they're not giving it up. They're trying to keep on going, you know, but they're miserable. And I go, hey, excuse me. Here's a lollipop. And I give them prashadam. And I go, here's a book on yoga. It talks about how to get free from stress. And immediately they go, huh? You know, and I got pictures to show people because, you know, people don't believe it. I got hundreds of pictures I post on Facebook of me giving people books. It's miraculous, you know, that somehow or other, Prabhupada and Lord Chaitanya said, here, you're doing this for the rest of your life. And I said, okay. And now I am. And I feel like one of my prayers is I want to die doing it. I'd like to hand somebody a Gita someday and just die. You know, here's a book on yoga and meditation. What happened? Well, he's not here anymore. That's the way I want to go.
May you achieve your desired goal, Prabhu.
Thanks for your blessings. Thanks for doing this, Prabhus.
Thank you.
You guys seem so nice. What do you do? I mean, when you're not doing videos.
Oh.
Well, we have a small farm in the middle of the North Island of New Zealand, Vishnu Premapalli, where let me turn my camera off. Yeah, it's our son Prahlad Narasingha. It's his 21st birthday today. We have a son and a daughter.
Nice.
Isha turns 15 soon. And then we have our small farm, Vishnu Premapalli. We have 4 cows.
Wow.
And, you know, we're trying to fulfill on the second half of Srila Prabhupada's mission, which is the establishment of Divyanga Ashram Dharma to give some structure and support to retaking this planet from the Asuras. And we actually met in February of 2022 at the Parliament occupation. So, you know, they had the whole COVID thing and they brought in the mandates for the vaccinations and that. And it was particularly hard here in New Zealand. They had like big lockdowns and everything, and then put a lot of people out of work. Police, fire, ambulance, people who'd been like doing the ambulance service for 20 years, just like kicked them to the curb and shut down a lot of businesses. And so, you know, thousands of New Zealanders descended on the Parliament and to petition the government for redress. And I went down there, my son and I, Prahlad Narasingha, we went there with some other devotees. We were living on another Krishna farm at the time. And some of us devotees who'd been kind of like doing Harinams at all the protests, we went to it. And then we set up a Krishna temple there.
Wow.
And we were there for 21 days in the garden of the Parliament in an occupation with like 3,000 people there. And we did Harinam up to 12 hours a day. And Prahlad did book distribution. And he said 90% of the people who were there already had the Bhagavad Gita.
Wow.
He'd be like, oh, and they're like, I already got that one. So he was distributing a lot of other books.
Nice.
And then other devotees came down and they did a kitchen, and they were distributing 3,000 plates of prasadam a day, like for 21 days. It turned into a massive Sankirtan yajna. So we had continuous Harinam Sankirtan chanting going on all day in the Krishna temple in the center of what came to be called the Freedom Village. And then we would go out and do Harinam around it. And so it was the entire Parliament precinct had been taken over by these people who were just like sleeping on the ground. And there was a cyclone while we were there. They were doing austerities. It was amazing. And then we would go out, and then they'd expanded it out and taken over city blocks around it with trucks and cars and people in tents and sleeping on the ground. And we would do Harinam through it. And it was like going through the villages. And that's where we met, because Dana was a nurse and she got mandated, and so she couldn't work. And so she went to the protest, and she'd given up on the devotees because a lot of the devotees were kind of like, it's this kind of like a lot of the movement has gone from like, we're here to take over the world, to we're here to make sure that we have a place in the world. And there are other devotees among us who are like, we have no interest in participating in your Asuric civilization. We're here to totally crush it. This is totalitarian war on Maya and all conceptions that are anything other than pure devotion to Krishna. And then, you're just going to have to deal with this, but this is a takeover of the planet. So we had that mood about us, but other devotees were like, don't do Harinam, you can't do it, it's illegal. I'm like, did you just say that doing Harinam is illegal? There's only one response to that I know from the books, and that's that you go to where the government is and you smash their garden and you do a Harinam there. That's what I read in the book, So that's what we're going to do.
Hey,
So
what did
then
Lord
Dana shows
Chaitanya do? Lord Chaitanya took 1,000,000 devotees to the Kazi's house.
Yeah, exactly. We were like, hey, this is the literate guys. We're in the Chankasi Leela right now.
You can choose to not do it, but that's the wrong choice. I mean, Lord Chaitanya wants this done. That's so cool that Krishna gave you that facility, though, with thousands of people there.
It was unbelievable. Prabhu, it was like, how you have like nectar stories from doing Sankirtan. Muchakunda was there, and he said to me, Prabhu, it's like every encounter here is like that. Like you're one of the devotees saying, here, carry the mridanga. So the devotees showed up from Northland to set up the kitchen, and they rolled up, and they were like, they just arrived there, and they were like, oh, we need to help us to carry this equipment. And I said, yeah. And by this stage, I'd realized where we were. We were in a mystical dham that Krishna had manifested in the world. So I step out onto the road, and I go, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. And then these people just show up, and then they're like, oh, can we help you with the stuff? I'm like, sure. And then the guy picks it up, and he's like, oh, this heavy stuff, is this going to the temple, or do you want us to take it to the kitchen tent? And I'm like, oh, this stuff, yeah, great point. I think this stuff needs to go to the kitchen, I'm like, dude, these people know more about this than I do.
That's really sweet.
They'd just show up in the kirtan, and children would just like take the mic and start leading the kirtan for like an hour. People would just show up and start playing mridanga. I was like, sages and demigods have taken birth on this planet, we're
that
the
must have
advanced
been
party.
ecstatic. I love it. Thanks for telling me that. That's a
on
great
the 2nd of July. We have an episode on the 2nd of July with devotees talking about it. But get this, Prabhu. When we went there, I was like, we're on a reality TV show for the demigods. And the other thing I want you guys to realize is that this is all being filmed for propaganda purposes by the demons. And we have to make sure that it is impossible for them to film a scene without the devotees in it. This is Hare Krishna in the movies. Every scene has the devotees going past in the background, and I want those cartels, I want the chanting of Krishna's name and everything that goes out of here. And devotees who were watching what was happening on the official streams and on Facebook and everything, they're like, dude, the Harinam is like literally in everything. And they've made a feature-length film about it, and it comes out in August in movie theaters in New Zealand.
I mean, if that's not Prabhupada and Lord Chaitanya's arrangement, I don't know what it is. That's amazing. I mean, that kind of nectar, that's priceless. Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhu. We just have like carrying the torch from devotees like yourself, Ganesham Prabhu, Bhakti Tirtha Swami, Tripurari Swami, Pragosh, Riddha, Gora,
Vaish,
Kalki, Vaishasheka.
Govinda Dasi.
I mean, it's amazing because this movement is going to go on, Prabhupada said. And this is the golden Kali Yuga. This is not an ordinary Kali Yuga. 1 in 1,000 Kali Yugas, you get the golden, whereas Lord Chaitanya comes and gives prem. In a regular Kali Yuga, if you do good, you can get liberated. There's a golden avatar, but he doesn't give prem. Lord Chaitanya, Krishna, Bhagavan Swayam Sri Krishna comes as Chaitanya to give prem to everybody. Break open the storehouse, and we don't qualify him. Everybody gets the mercy. That's the mood. Just like you said, we're going to have Harinam and distribute, what'd you say? 20,000 plates? So 60,000 plates. It was 20 days.
No, it was 3,000 plates a day, yeah.
20 days. That's 60,000 plates. That's a lot of prasadam.
Yeah. And then in the newspaper coverage of it, they were saying, you know, residents have to deal with constant noise from the site. But then as the journalists came in, they're like, it's like a festival in here. And there's a Hare Krishna tent where they're doing like music continually during the day.
Music and food. Prabhupada said anybody likes to come to a party where there's food and dance and music. That's all we do. It's such a constant spiritual party.
And the other thing is people have the opportunity to do service without them knowing.
That's right. Agyata Sukhati.
Leading kirtan. And the kids so attracted to be there and the leaders to sing. They're playing the harmonium, not the harmonium, the
Accordion.
midanga. They're playing the cartels and they're leading the kirtan. Kids. You don't have to tell them anything. They feel so attracted and they're doing that.
We got a couple of movies that we made because every day we were just like, this is insane. And we were videoing it and sending it out, you know, to get like, hey man, come down here and like join us. And so some devotees, you know, they crossed over the social disapproval and the fear of the government retribution, everything. They came down, they were like, I couldn't stay away from this, man. Like my temple authority was telling me to collaborate with the government, but like I just had to do it, you know? And so we got those videos. I can send those to you to check out.
I would love it. Thanks.
Yeah. Thank you so much, bro. You know, if
Thank
we can
you.
get your blessings to continue taking this movement forward into the future. And, you know, if we last a bit longer than you after you leave your body on Sankirtan handing a book to someone, then we can take the torch forward into the future and our children can also continue it.
That's nice, Prabhu. That's nice.
Thank you for coming and thank you for sharing all of your experience because what I can
really,
see and what is
feel really lucky.
What is so powerful about this is you love your determination. That's something that is very contagious for us, and that builds us with determination, with power to continue doing what Srila Prabhupada wants us to do, and to distribute Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mercy. There is nothing else for us in this world. But thank you for sharing all of your love and experience.
Thank you, really, guys. It's my pleasure. Hare Krishna. Please accept my
Much
obeisance. Sarva Vishnu Vadapaya Koti Namaskar Ite Aparada Kichu Namkamar. Om Tat Sat.
Hare Krishna. Muchakunda says this guy is ecstatic. I want to go on books just by looking at his smile.
Yeah.
Confirmed. He says
Thank
he gets
you.
it. Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare
Krishna.
I hope I get to meet you sometime. I would love to come down and see your cows and have some ahimsa milk.
Yeah.
Oh, brilliant. That would be amazing.
We'll keep in touch, Prabhu. Thank you.
Prabhu, thank you
Hare
so
Krishna.
much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
Kishore
Krishna.
Kishore Ki Jai.
Jai.